The year was 1014, and Ireland stood at a turning point that would shape its destiny forever. On that fateful Good Friday morning, as the sun rose over Dublin Bay, two mighty armies faced each other on the fields of Clontarf. The clash that followed would become one of the most significant battles in Irish history, a battle that still echoes through time today. Think about what Ireland was like back then, a land of many small kingdoms, where power shifted like sand in the wind. For over 200 years, Viking raiders and settlers had been making their mark on Irish shores. Some came to raid, others to trade, and many to stay. They built towns like Dublin, Waterford, and Limerick, bringing changes that would last forever. The High King of Ireland had spent decades building his power. He started as the ruler of a small kingdom in what we now call County Clare. Through clever alliances, tough battles, and strong leadership, he rose to become the most powerful man in Ireland. But not everyone was happy with this. Some Irish chiefs resisted his authority, and the Viking leaders of Dublin feared losing their independence. The stage was set for an epic showdown when the Viking king of Dublin, Sigtryg Silkbeard, joined forces with the king of Leinster. Together, they gathered a massive army. Warriors came from all over the Viking world, from the Orkney Islands, the Isle of Man, and even as far as Norway. They were experienced fighters, armed with their famous Viking axes and swords, protected by chainmail and wooden shields. On the other side, the High King assembled his own impressive force. His army included men from his home province of Munster, allies from Connacht, and even some Viking warriors who had chosen to fight on his side. Each warrior carried weapons passed down through generations: spears, swords, and shields decorated with intricate Irish designs. The battle began early in the morning. Imagine the scene: thousands of warriors facing each other across the field, the rising sun glinting off their weapons. The air was filled with the sound of war horns and battle cries in both Irish and Norse languages. The fight that followed was brutal and lasted all day long. Warriors who survived told stories of incredible bravery on both sides. Men fought in tightly packed groups, shields locked together, pushing against each other like waves crashing against rocks. The sound of weapons clashing, the shouts of warriors, and the cries of the wounded filled the air. The tide of battle swung back and forth, with neither side able to gain a clear advantage for many hours. As the fighting raged on, the rising tide of Dublin Bay began to play a crucial role. Some Viking warriors, trying to reach their ships, found themselves trapped by the incoming water. The sea that had brought them to Ireland now blocked their escape. The battle turned into a desperate struggle for survival. The pivotal moment came late in the day. The Irish forces finally broke through the Viking lines, and the battle turned into a rout. The Viking army began to retreat, many trying to reach the safety of Dublin's walls or their ships anchored in the bay. But the retreat turned deadly, with many warriors drowning in the rising tide or being cut down as they fled. The cost of victory was enormous. Both sides lost many of their best warriors. The High King himself died in his tent after the battle, assassinated by a small group of fleeing Vikings who stumbled upon him. His grandson, who had fought bravely all day, also fell in the fighting. The Vikings lost several of their most important leaders too, including the Earl of Orkney. The battle changed Ireland forever. The Viking power in Ireland was broken, though they didn't leave completely. Instead, they gradually became part of Irish society, contributing to the rich mix of cultures that makes Ireland what it is today. The Viking towns they had built continued to grow and prosper, becoming important centres of trade and culture. But the Battle of Clontarf had an even deeper meaning. It showed that Ireland could stand united against outside threats when needed. The battle became a symbol of Irish resistance and unity, even though the reality was more complex, with Irish warriors fighting on both sides and Vikings doing the same. The story of Clontarf grew in the telling over the centuries. Poets and storytellers turned it into an epic tale of good versus evil, though the truth was never that simple. They told of supernatural events during the Battle of Warrior Angels seen flying over the battlefield and of the sea turning red with blood. The real significance of Clontarf wasn't just about who won or lost. It marked the end of an era in Irish history. The old system of Viking raids was over. Future Vikings who came to Ireland would come as traders and settlers, not raiders. The battle also showed how Ireland had changed during the Viking Age. It wasn't a simple fight between Irish and Vikings, it was a battle between different groups who all saw Ireland as their home. Today, 1,000 years later, we can still learn from Clontarf. It reminds us that history isn't simple. It's not always clear who the heroes and villains are. The Vikings weren't just raiders, they helped build many of Ireland's cities and became part of its people. The Irish weren't just victims, they were active players in a complex political game, making alliances and fighting each other as much as they fought outsiders. The battle teaches us about leadership, about how one person's vision can change a nation. It shows us the importance of unity in the face of challenges, while also reminding us that such unity often comes at a great cost. The High King's death at the moment of his greatest victory is a powerful reminder that even in triumph, there is often tragedy. The battle site today is part of modern Dublin's suburbs. Walking there, you might not guess that such a massive battle once took place. But beneath the modern streets and houses lies the ground where thousands of men fought and died, where the course of Irish history changed in a single day. The weapons they used, the clothes they wore, and the exact words they spoke may be lost to time, but the importance of what happened at Clontarf lives on. It's a reminder that the events of a single day can echo through centuries, that the choices people make in times of conflict can shape the future in ways they never imagined. The Battle of Clontarf wasn't just about Ireland, it was part of a bigger story of how Europe was changing around the year 1000. The Vikings were becoming Christians, setting up kingdoms and changing from raiders to traders. Similar changes were happening all across Europe. Clontarf was one of the last great battles of the Viking Age. When we remember Clontarf, we're remembering more than just a battle. We're remembering a time when Ireland stood at a crossroads between the old world and the new. The Vikings had brought change to Ireland towns, trade, new ways of fighting, new styles of art and craft. After Clontarf, these changes became permanent parts of Irish life. The battle reminds us that change, though often painful, can lead to something new and valuable. The Vikings who settled in Ireland didn't disappear, they became Irish. Their descendants today are as Irish as anyone else. They added their strength, their skills, and their stories to Ireland's rich culture. Think of the courage it took to stand in those shield walls at Clontarf. Think of the loyalty that drove men to fight and die for their leaders. Think of the vision that inspired them to shape the future of their country. These qualities are still important today, even if we use them in different ways. The story of Clontarf reminds us that great changes often come with great sacrifice. It teaches us that victory can be bittersweet, and that sometimes the real meaning of events only becomes clear long after they've happened. It shows us that history is made not just by kings and leaders, but by all the ordinary people who fought, lived, and died on that battlefield. The battle marked both an ending and a beginning. It was the end of the Viking Age in Ireland, but the beginning of a new chapter in Irish history. The Vikings didn't leave, they stayed and helped build the Ireland we know today. Their blood flows in Irish veins, their words remain in Irish place names, and their influence can still be seen in Irish art and culture. 1,000 years have passed since that bloody day at Clontarf. The world has changed in ways those warriors could never have imagined, but their story still has power. It reminds us that the past is never simple, that change is constant, and that today's enemies might become tomorrow's friends. The Battle of Clontarf stands as a testament to human courage, the complexity of history, and the way time can turn bitter enemies into one people. It reminds us that the future is shaped not just by who wins or loses a battle, but by how people choose to live together afterward. Each time we tell this story, we keep alive the memory of those who fought and died at Clontarf. We honour their courage while learning from their experience. Their story helps us understand our own times better, reminding us that change, though sometimes painful, is part of every society's growth. The legacy of Clontarf lives on in Ireland's rich culture, in its mix of traditions, and in its ability to absorb and be enriched by newcomers. It lives on in every Irish person who carries both Viking and Irish blood in their veins. Most of all, it lives on in the lesson that out of conflict can come a new and stronger society. Let the Battle of Clontarf inspire us to face our own challenges with courage, to see beyond simple divisions of us and them, and to remember that today's actions will echo through time, shaping the future in ways we might never expect. The stories from Clontarf still carry important messages for us today. When we face hard times, we can look back at how people 1,000 years ago handled their own huge challenges. They didn't just survive, they built something new and better from their struggles. The battle also teaches us about how stories grow over time. In the years after Clontarf, storytellers added their own touches to the tale. They told of omens in the sky before the battle, of strange clouds and mysterious lights. They spoke of heroes doing amazing things, of single warriors holding off dozens of enemies. While these stories might not be exactly true, they show us how important Clontarf became in people's minds. Some said the waves of Dublin Bay turned red with blood that day. Others told stories of mothers finding their sons, of brothers fighting brothers, of old friends meeting as enemies on the battlefield. These personal stories remind us that big historical events are always made up of individual human experiences. The battle changed how the Irish saw themselves. Before Clontarf, many Irish people thought of the Vikings as unstoppable raiders from across the sea. After the battle, they saw that even the mightiest enemies could be beaten if people worked together. This new confidence changed how the Irish dealt with future invaders. The Viking towns in Ireland kept growing after the battle, but in a different way. Dublin, Waterford, Wexford and other coastal towns became places where Irish and Viking cultures mixed freely. Markets filled with goods from all over Europe. Irish kings learned from Viking methods of collecting taxes and organizing trade. The Vikings learned Irish farming methods and adopted Irish styles of art. Children grew up speaking both Irish and Norse languages. Farmers used tools that mixed Viking and Irish designs. Artists created new styles that took the best from both cultures. Even the churches showed this mixing of styles, with Irish crosses decorated with Viking patterns. The warriors who fought at Clontarf wouldn't recognize today's Ireland, but they helped make it what it is. Every time someone uses an Irish word that came from Norse, every time they walk down a street in a town the Vikings helped build, they're touching a piece of that history. The battle shows us that fighting isn't always about good versus evil. Both sides had good people and bad people, brave warriors and cowards, those who fought for noble reasons and those who just wanted power. Understanding this helps us look at today's conflicts in a more thoughtful way. We can still visit places connected to the battle. There's a park in modern Dublin where part of the fighting happened. Standing there, you can close your eyes and try to hear the echoes of that far-off Good Friday. The land remembers, even if it's now covered with buildings and streets. The Battle of Clontarf didn't just change Ireland, it changed everyone involved. The Vikings who survived went home with new respect for Irish strength. The Irish learned that they could match any army in Europe. Both sides learned that neither could dominate the other completely, and that working together might be better than fighting. Today, when people argue about how to remember historical events, Clontarf offers good lessons. It shows that you don't have to pick sides, you can honor the courage of warriors on both sides while still being honest about what happened. You can be proud of your ancestors while admitting they weren't perfect. The battle also teaches us about leadership. The High King showed that a good leader needs more than just strength, they need wisdom, patience, and the ability to bring people together. These are still important qualities for leaders today. When Irish people today look back at Clontarf, they can be proud of their ancestors' courage while also being thankful that those old enemies became part of one people. They can see how their culture grew stronger by taking in new ideas and new people. The Battle of Clontarf belongs to everyone who calls Ireland home today, whether their ancestors were on the Irish side, the Viking side, or came to Ireland long after the battle was over. It's part of the story that made Ireland what it is. So when we remember Clontarf, let's remember all of it, the courage and the fear, the victory and the loss, the endings and the beginnings. Let's remember how enemies can become friends, how cultures can mix to create something new, and how the past can help light the way to the future. The warriors of Clontarf, both Irish and Viking, left us a rich legacy. They showed us that great change is possible, that old hatreds can be overcome, and that tomorrow might be better than today if we're brave enough to make it so.